what they talked about. So one of the real key things and the real jump out things is doing the elevator pitch. So we're actually, as we go around and introduce ourselves, I'd like to try to use that as the elevator pitch. So I'm just going to go through about 2 minutes of what they said about the elevator pitch. And just trying to move my screen here. Actually, I'm just going to back up a bit just with a sort of big overview of what I think was the key point. So, first of all, really creating credibility, showing that you're professional as you speak to people and talk to galleries, talk to museums. So it's one of the key things is really creating that credibility. Next thing, building relationships, again, with the other artists, museums, curators, etc. Telling a story in your artwork, whether that's through philosophical stuff, whatever that story is, how you tell and get that story across. And of course, probably most important, as we're all artists, is sort of making and showing great work. And the one thing that they kept jumping back into is burn the crap. Don't keep your internet and social media image kind of clean. Don't let the stuff that's not to your standards out into the world. Don't even give it away for auction or etc. Just get rid of it. Again, so one of the real things that I found amazing was the pitch. So they're saying keep it within.
Sheldon, could you close the
Go ahead. Sorry, I muted her.
Oh, good. Okay. So keeping it within about 30 seconds. Introduce yourself, tell people about your work, get the size and placement in there. But again, just keep it within very short, crisp, clean, articulate, and keep it within 30 seconds or so, 3 or 4 lines. Imagine, so as you're introducing yourselves here, imagine you just kind of meet the director of the Museum of Modern Art and, how do you introduce yourself? What do you say? One of the other things that I really, that they said was know people in the room, know who you're talking to. So many times I'm just in conversation with whoever, and just by asking, you find out they're a heart surgeon or a astronaut, or what the things that people do are just so amazing, and you can't find that out unless you ask, and they can't find out about you unless you tell them. So go ahead, Dominic, why don't you start out with your introduction?
Yeah, let me do that. So this is, basically the elevator pitch that Michael was referring to. So yeah, my name is Dominic Esposito. I'm an artist and activist. I kind of consider my art really to be disruptive. And how do I do that? I drop these 800-pound, 10-foot opioid spoon in front of pharmaceutical companies, and that's garnered the attention of a lot of media and news. And my art, my current art really kind of follows a lot of that work. I make these sort of 2-dimensional paintings with a 3-dimensional sculpture on top of it, so the art becomes very visceral. And I do that with oil painting in the background, and then with a large kind of bronze sculpture coming out at you in the painting. And yeah, and my studio is based in Westwood and Massachusetts, and that's it. So yeah, it's kind of so you kind of have this hook that kind of brings people in. That's what Joy kind of talked about. But go ahead. So.
I guess I'll go next. So I've been a sculptor for over 25 years, creating fine art bronzes and public sculptures. My work is in galleries, private collections worldwide. Currently, I have a large-scale 8-foot sculpture featured in downtown Brooklyn at Brooklyn Borough Hall. And I just recently put up a solo show with 15 of my large-scale sculptures in Jersey City overlooking the downtown Manhattan waterfront. The sculptures really create wonder. They're all paired with quotes, really getting to people to, think about different points of view in the world and kind of getting people to share our humanity that we all have, that we're all a part of. Okay, and who would like to go next?
I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm a figurative sculptor, been working for about 30 years. I'm also an occupational therapist, so I'm interested in the aspects of the parts of the body that become whole. And I was very influenced by Rodin's sculpture and the whole idea of what a fragment is and the importance of a fragment. I have a piece that's going into a public park here in Yonkers. It's a historic relief of what the area looked like in 1785. And I'm going to be becoming the current president of the National Association of Women Artists.
Oh, wow. Great.
That's great. And I didn't catch your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Jacqueline Lorio, Jackie.
Nice. And do you live in, where do you
I
live?
live in Yonkers.
Yonkers. Nice.
And I have a studio in Yoho, which is an old carpet factory that's been converted into artist studios and small businesses.
Nice. And how did you hear about this NISA presentation being in New York?
Well, I'm a member and I had gotten, the advertisements for it, but I think like, others, I wasn't available. So I'm very grateful that you're, willing to do this and go over it. And I'm also sort of pushing that as many things can be on Zoom because I'm in New York.
Sure.
So, coming up to areas in New England is a challenge.
Nice. Okay. And who would like to go next? Karen? You got to unmute, I think. Dominic.
Yeah. Okay. She's back. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, oh God, the elevator pitch. Okay, my name's Karen Stanley. I've been in art and design since my early 20s. My connection is through Celtic and megalithic art and not to the past. Sort of retransformation into a modern vernacular. I've been a garden designer also, so I think about space in a very deep way and how sculpture fits into these areas. I've also been lecturing, designing, and a poet. I kind of mesh it all into this one love of my artistic expression. My work is also around the world. I've got a number of public pieces in Wellesley College Chapel, the Mass Hort Society, Irish Cultural Centre, the Carroll School, but my work is in a number of collections and around the world. I mainly work in stone and metal, play around with resin. I know I'm stretching it out now. And I'm going to Carrera next week to carve, so I'm really excited.
Wow, nice. Good.
That's awesome.
Congratulations. That's a great thing. Good.
Mm.
Okay, and who would like to go next? Is it
Beta, do you want to go, Beta, or are you okay doing it?
Yeah. My name is Beda Asbridge. I have a studio in Worcester. I live in Worcester, Massachusetts. I started as a 2D artist, painting, Chinese brush painting, and gradually I moved into sculpture. But I am a craft person. I really like to do things with my hands, so I always was inclined to do things 3D. And I work with wood, and I'm trying to learn more about metal as well. So I'm trying to combine these two. My first piece as a outdoor sculpture was last time when there was a call to artists at Cape Cod Museum. My piece was rejected, but at least it was an attempt to put peace outdoors. So that I learned a lot from it. I like to interpret literature into pieces of art. So there is a lot of interpretation in my pieces of a poem or a haiku or something. So there is always a piece with some kind of literature that's associated with that piece. And the other thing that I liked to tell you about my art, that it's always like I really like to use natural material in my art. So there's hardly any plastic material in my work. So it's always natural stuff that I collect, whether it's pods or grass or raffia. So I turned into basketry, and now I'm trying to do baskets and stuff like that. But I use metal, I use wire as well in my basket making. I am from the Middle East, so what's happening now in Gaza affects me a lot. So I'm working on lots of pieces and interpretations about what's happening in Gaza.
Wow.
That's me.
Great.
It's good.
Do you want to go, So Young? Are you okay doing it?
Yes, sure. Hi, my name is So Young Park. I'm multidisciplinary artist based on Boston, New York, and Seoul. And I'm making sculpture, videos, and using multimedia medium into my installation. I'm interested in social injustice, feminism, environmental issue around me, and now my research area focusing on the technology and nature and human relationship and how their power dynamic change between the generation. So I'm more focusing on the future, what's gonna happening in AI generation and how the human and nature relationship will be shaped. And I'm using recycling material like a cardboard or plastic. I found the plastic on the street or nearby the water, and a projection image on it. So it's kind of give you immersive experience in my installation. I'm interested in the materialism and non-materialism and function and non-functionalism in my sculpture. So I'm trying to go beyond the boundary. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. It's great. And do we have, I'm not sure if
Carlos is just listening for now. So
Okay, sure.
yeah, let's just, yeah.
Okay, so Dominic, I'm not sure, did you email those notes then at all or no, or that, well,
I can, I haven't yet, but
that's fine. Well, so we had 3 sessions through starting in the summer of last year going into the fall. I think it was about 18 hours, like 6 hours each. So this is kind of like the cliff notes of 18 hours of career development, which is, you know, kind of crazy. So I put it into about 5 different topics. I will email those notes afterwards. I'm just going to kind of go through a bird's eye view of all of them, if I can get my, and then we're going to actually start towards the bottom. So the first thing we kind of went through a little bit is developing your pitch, showing your professionalism. Part of that is things like your resume, bio, statement, writing about your work, trying to keep those, again, clean, crisp, professional sounding, and also trying to capture the art lingo. You know, you can, you know, certain ways that they talk, it can be a little distracting.
let me, I can share them on my screen if you want. And
actually, let me.
You want to do it?
My screen or?
Yeah, go ahead if you want, because then
Sure.
you can scroll through.
Yeah.
We can send them out to you guys. Just try not to send them to anybody else. There's a lot of like privacy issues happening with some of the materials. So
Yeah.
we'll send them to you. But don't forward them on to anybody, please.
So if you're able to share my screen.
You should be able to, because I made you a code.
Oh, hold on. I see it right here. Hold on. And
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm sorry, just don't know how to do this here.
Yeah, it should be at the bottom. There's a little green arrow at the bottom. Just a-
Right, I'm in that screen. You're probably seeing a bunch of different things. I might
No, we're not seeing it yet.
not seeing anything here.
But there we go.
Okay, and you see that
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
You see these short organized notes here, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so again, the first thing we kind of went through is the supporting documentation. Number two, kind of knowing the art environment, do your research. Joy talked about doing 5 hours of research. I think she said, what, a week? Is that right, Dominic?
Mhm.
Just,
Yes.
kind of following the local art news, local, national, world art news. What are the top publications? So to do your research. Number three, creating a presence. Again, when it comes down to it, it's really all about your artwork and its placement. This kind of professional stuff is supported by a three-legged stool, museums and galleries. Sales is kind of the lifeblood of being able to make art. Like, we only have so much personal savings. If we're not, getting some income in, it's hard to invest the money in making great art, especially when you're, let's say, casting in bronze or other materials. It gets really costly. So, one of my things is, art almost becomes like a drug habit that, if I sell this, then I can make that. You're always planning, like, if I have the money, then I can, these are the crazy things I can make. And scholarly pursuits, how do you get it to be to the level that's going to be academically rigorous, that museums, curators, and galleries will take notice? Using the social media, of course, keeping this all professional, creating a website, Facebook, Instagram. They talked about LinkedIn a lot. I don't personally use LinkedIn much. Number four, selling. And how do you do that? Working through gallery shows, commissions. It's a big, big art world out there. I just recently read the US art and culture industry is $1.1 trillion a year, almost 5% of the US economy, which is pretty crazy. So, there's lots of money out there. There's lots of ways to get it, kind of let's get our piece of it. And then ways to figure out how you can get an inside view on what's happening. So let's say sitting on a panel or a jury, going to openings, becoming a member of a museum, and then having some goals. And part of it in both your sort of business things that you're doing, as well as your artwork, kind of really focus on one or two really top goals, really put all your eggs in that basket. If you need to change or adjust, go and do that. But, it's kind of crazy when so many artists are sort of scattershot and doing, painting and sculpture and all kinds of different things. And they're like, why can't I get, headway on anything? Part of it is they're just so scattered. So really try to focus, be strategic, build a body of work, and then also as well develop multiple streams of income. As the art world changes, as things change, you have other income to fall back on. So I'm actually going to jump into actually sort of the bottom one, which is the sales and marketing first. I'm going to try to, I'm not sure what you're seeing here on my screen. Can anyone tell me what you see?
Yeah, we're seeing that. Yeah,
You-
what
You seeing me scrolling now?
Yeah,
or-
I see all the
Okay,
notes.
good. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll down, and when you get this, you'll see it. It's a long Word document. It's really is like cliff notes of what they said in the 18 hours. So we're going to start with number 4, selling. I'm going to try to recap things within, let's say, each topic within 5 to 10 minutes or so, and then I'll open it to questions. If you have questions or thoughts, or I'm going too deep in the weeds, just shout out and let me know what you're thinking. So one of the things that they said is it's money all the way up. Like, again, our market, more than many other places, is a lot about money. So we're going to start, then move into galleries. The 3 presenters were all from the New York art scene. Many of the stuff that they talk about is from the New York City galleries, not necessarily so much Boston stuff. So there's a whole, again, for both art fairs and galleries, there's a spectrum, sort of with the blue chip galleries at the top. If you think of like blue chip stock, these are ones like Marlboro and Pace, these really mega galleries that are in New York City and Paris. They have worldwide shops, maybe 5 or 6 different huge galleries over the world. Sort of know your spectrum of galleries. One of the ways to know that is, so two ways to kind of explore galleries on your own. One is to go on the internet and, let's say, search New York or Chelsea galleries. And I'm just saying that because that's kind of what they were talking about. You can obviously do the same thing with Boston or Lenox. Like some of these smaller places like Boston or Lenox, Massachusetts is a great gallery scene. You could actually spend a day, go in every gallery in Lenox, actually talk to many of the owners, which is kind of cool, and kind of get a feel of where you fit in. Not so much, New York City is kind of a much bigger scene. You can't really so much do that in New York City, but you'll see a lot greater art. And feel free to kind of just, start talking to galleries and curators. You may want to tell them that you're a artist, so you're not, kind of taking up their time. It's their business as well. So kind of hone in on your top 5 galleries, create a presence, start the conversation. One of the things that they talked about was 9 touches. In other words, you want to reach out, pick your top 5 galleries or whatever you want to trying to get into. And whether it's through emails, going into the gallery, going to the openings, getting to know the people in a sort of informal way, try to reach out to them 9 different times and kind of help build that relationship. Of course, 9 is not a magic number. It could be 10 or 20 or 5. Sometimes you'll click it off on the first time you're talking to them. Try to get them to do a studio visit if they can. What is the gallery's motivation? Again, they're a business. They're trying to make money. They also really enjoy art. And if they like you as an artist, I've always found it's in their best interest to promote us as artists, because the better and bigger name that we get, the better they're doing, the more that they can sell, the more their business profits. It needs to be centered in trust, in goodwill. When you're working with the gallery, you're really like partners. They need to be accountable as well as yourself. Things like consignment sheets. So when a gallery has your work on consignment, they're actually legally responsible for it. So in other words, they need to insure it. If it breaks in the gallery, they're responsible for it. Joy really talks about Consignment sheets is a thing to take care of those details. So in other words, it should have the sculpture, the size, the amount of money, your percentage you're getting, the date you dropped off the work. It almost becomes a contract. They actually said galleries are kind of moving away from contracts currently. Again, if you peruse the New York City galleries, you'll see a number of the top artists are represented in 5 or 10 different galleries, which didn't used to be the case. So you could absolutely, again, depending on what the limitations of the gallery and what they want to do, you can be in a number of different galleries. They may limit you to geographic areas or whatever rules that they have. Again, don't be too comfortable with the dealers in the galleries. Like, you want to be comfortable, but it's a business relationship, and deal with it that way. It's your money, your artwork, and obviously their money. You want to keep it very business-like. Allow for some discounts to allow for sales to go through. Usually 10% is kind of the industry standard that, you know, they're pretty easy to work within 10% discounts. Keep the conversation open with the collectors. Talk to collectors. One of the things that they always talk about is the galleries talk to the galleries, the museums talk to the museums, and it's kind of this you know, ecosystem of networking and relationships. The higher up you go in the art world, the more complicated it gets. It doesn't get any easier. They talked about the galleries owners doing like in the gallery staffing, they do a round table, put down a number of different artists' ideas and images, and what they're thinking about showing for the season. Some of the considerations are inventory, what's available, how saleable is it, space, kind of the space that it takes up, and how does it do in terms of contemporary issues. You know, is it talk about social justice, environmental issues, etc. But part of the bottom line is, you know, can they sell it, and can they make a buck with it? When you're sitting down with a gallery or a dealer, you know, everyone wants it to go smoothly. Some of the questions to ask are, what is the payment schedule for art sales? Usually galleries will do once a month payment. So, you know, they may sell it on the 1st of the month, but you won't get paid till, let's say, the 15th of the next month. And that's kind of standard. So, you know, you don't want to be on the phone saying, you know, where's my payment? I know I sold this thing yesterday. You know, when are you sending the check? You know, it usually takes 30 to 40 days or so. And those are all good things to have up front. Of course, what is your commission? Are there any fees? There's many galleries, especially in New York City, that ask you to pay for wall space. I try to stay away from them, partially because when the gallery is getting a commission, it's in their best interest to sell the work. You know, in other words, if they're getting paid up front, you know, if you're paying them a rent of, let's say, $1,000 a month to show your artwork, they have really no reason to sell the artwork because they're getting paid up front. And why bother doing any work selling it, because they're getting paid by the artists. Typical, what I find typical in the gallery commission is 40 to 50%. A lot of artists complain about that. I know it's a hard thing to bear, but partly the way I see it is that they are paying their staff, they're paying real estate for the gallery location, and you could, let's say, be in 5 or 10 galleries around the country, whereas if you were trying to sell this on your own, that's not possible. So in some ways, you know, the 50% is tough to bear. It's a chunk out of your income, but it can be certainly worth it. Again, these are the things that you have to think about as an artist and being strategic, and where do you want to go? How do you want to sell? How much money do you want to get from it? Other questions to ask are, how many shows will you be getting? Will some of your pieces be up year round, and maybe you get one show a year, one show every 2 years? You know, what does this look like in the gallery? Will they take your artwork to art fairs? Do they feel comfortable with you working with other galleries, other dealers? Is there geographic boundaries? One of my galleries says you just can't show any place within 90 miles. So with that particular gallery, I don't do art shows. I don't do show in any other galleries within that range of 90 miles. Everything else is sort of free game. Be consistent with your pricing, and also think about your pricing when you're selling it through your studio with a, you know, whoever is buying it coming into your studio versus what the gallery is selling it for. And one of the things also to think about is, you know, if you're selling it to your friend and that price is not published on the internet or not any place, you know, it may be fine that you give them a discount as long as it doesn't become sort of publicly known. Again, that's a hard place to go. You just have to, you know, work it out.
I mean, what would be
ahead.
traditional difference then between studio and gallery?
Well, again,
10%, or, I mean, I know it's individual, but
absolutely. So typically galleries charge 10%. Typically, you can feel free to give a 10% discount from you or from the gallery. Again, art can sell for whatever you negotiate it to sell for. Again, you know, there's a little bit of a sticky situation. If you're selling it through your studio, obviously you might be getting 50% more. In other words, if it's, and I'm just going to say $1,000 sculpture, which is, let's say, your wholesale, it sells at the gallery for, let's say, $2,000. That extra $1,000, you could give a, you know, $500 or $600 discount, you know, 20 or 30% instead of the 10%. You want to just kind of keep that to yourself as much as possible. So, and we can talk more about this later on. So when you're working with a contract with a gallery, they're legally binding and they control you more. Whereas with consignment sheets, you're a little bit more open. Joy says in Joy Glidden, who was the presenter for all three of them, there's only about 4 big galleries in New York City that really deals with sculpture. Pace Gallery, Marlborough, which is actually closing, and Smyrna Gallery, which showcases like Richard Serra and these big giant sculptures. One of the things to think about is, what is the price point you can sell it at? Keep good files of where the artwork is. Don't keep everything. If it's bad, get rid of it. Try to keep your artwork alive by doing art talks and, you know, moving them around, moving your sculptures around in different places. Be very calculating. Okay, I'm going to open it up a little bit to questions about galleries and thoughts about it selling. Any thoughts, or am I going in too much of the weeds? Is this good for you guys?
That's great.
yeah,
Okay.
this is good.
So the next, again, galleries, again, there's a whole spectrum of galleries, from, you know, sort of your mom and pop frame shop that you can be in, local galleries in, say, Lenox, or different places, and of course the big New York City galleries where they don't even look at you when you walk in the door. Another way to sell is auctions. That's a much harder nut to crack. I haven't done too much with auctions, but essentially previous prices help justify the starting price that you're starting at. Find other artists on your level and look at the pricing on live and online auctions. And often the dealers will set the price. A lot of times, one way that, artists like us, and I'm going to say, I don't know if you want to say whatever, lower level artists as opposed to the big name people who are selling at Sotheby's, there's a lot of fundraising auctions that are done by both local art centers as well as bigger auction houses. It's very tempting to donate the bad art. If that art is then in an online auction that is shown on the internet, you want to make sure that you don't want to basically give away bad art and ruin your wrap. The other thing that they also talked about is more when you're young, and if you have a piece in an auction and it gets a really super big price, that price is then online and recorded, then it's sort of hard to live up to that price in the future. Again, hopefully we all have that problem, perhaps, but it's there, and that's part of the things that they talked about in terms of auctions. Museums, again, we all want to get into museums. We're doing a NISA show at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, which is really spectacular that we have that venue. It's always better to have show at a venue that has museum in the name rather than art center or art park. It just gives a little bit more energy to that venue. If you can get a museum trustee to buy your piece of artwork and donate to the museum, that's always a great thing. Museums are slow to develop their shows. They often work on 5 to 6 different shows at one time. Again, it takes a long time to develop those shows. And with this thing, you want to also try to develop your relationship with museum directors and curators. Again, different ways to do that is to sit on a panel or committee, be part of NISA. I think, Dominic, you're probably talking to Bennett at the Cape Cod Museum of Art. It's always great to build that relationship. And it also helps you see how shows are curated, what goes into where the pieces are placed, how do they select the artwork, what are the considerations, whether it's public safety or color, all these different things that become part of the considerations. Museums are bursting at the seams with artwork. There is actually much more artwork in storage than there is actually on display in the museum, which to me is really a shame. Also with owners, people who actually, the really rich people have most of their artwork in storage, which is crazy if you think about it. At the Met, a trustee pays $1.5 million for the privilege of volunteering at the museum. Again, that is crazy. It's a very rich and privileged set for these really rich people to be on the museum trustee. Glenn Lowry, the museum director at the MoMA, gets paid. Everyone else pays. Again, talking to Joy and Paul and I think it was Jennifer. They have this inside view at a very high level that we don't have. So it's very cool to have sort of their view of the art world. Many of us, and may not ever be in that world, but what I find is, if you want to be a millionaire, hanging out with the billionaires. Not that I'm a millionaire, but if you want to be in the professional art world, these are the people to know, the people to hang out with. Again, the museums talk to the museums, the curators talk to the curators, get into this world and talk to them if that's something that you want to do. again, different ways to make those connections is sitting on a panel or jury, go to the openings, become a museum, know who the curators are, and know what kind of art fits into that gallery or museum or garden that you want to get into. You know, if you're trying to get your traditional landscape into, you know, let's say
Abstract. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, you don't have a chance because they have a very specific thing they're looking for.
Yeah, can I, sorry, Michael, I'm just going to interrupt a second. I think you hit on this, but it's a really important point that I think she was trying to make is like, and I think you were hitting on it as well, is to actually go to these openings and go to the shows and network. And I think, you know, things have gotten a little bit lazy because of COVID, right? So that's always been an excuse not to go out. So we've kind of become, you know, we're introverts in general because we're artists. But, you know, getting out there and trying to be an extrovert and, you know, and connecting with people is really important. So even if it's if someone like Michael, if he's got a show and he's got an opening, you know, go to it because there's going to be other people there. There's going to be other curators, not just artists, but there'll be, you know, people that you'll get to know. You know, even some of our shows that we put on at NISA, as an example, like, you know, we have some, we started really kind of paying professional jurors to come in, right? And those are great people to know because they're gallery owners and they know people. And so it's really important to really connect and go to the openings. I know, not, you know, and I see this a lot of our artists, at NISA, they may go to drop the art off and then pick it up, right? And you know, you want to go to the panel discussion, you want to go, you know, and meet the galleries and meet the people there, and maybe it's not just NISA shows, but the shows that happen like the first Fridays at SOA, like we should all be going there, like on Friday, you know, the first Friday of the month. I don't know if you know, like they have open studios, and so there's tons of art happening. There are a lot of people to meet. You know, there's wine and, you know, and so you can make an evening out of it and network.
Absolutely. And so even if you don't get into a show, again, I was in a show at the Danforth Art Museum. All the museum trustees and board members are there with name tags saying, you know, trustee, board member, curator, etc. Even if you don't get in the show, just being at the opening, you have essentially a free range of incredibly well-connected people to talk to between the artists and the curators, etc. It's absolutely a great way to start to get to know people. The one thing, again, I would say is be very specific in the galleries and the places you want to put that time into of stuff that you, let's say, want to get into. I'm going to move on to art shows. Again, like all of this, there is a wide spectrum of art shows from the top shows like Art Basel, which is in Miami. I would actually, and as well as in New York City, Art Frieze, which is happening, I think, in the first week or two in May. I would very much encourage everyone, like Frieze is an easy, you know, the New York City art shows is an easy thing to go to. Go there, spend the day. It is the artwork that will be in the museums in a year or two. So if you're going to these, and it's like really amazing that you can be there and see this stuff before it is in the museums. And so you get a good feel for what the galleries are, the spectrum. That's the highest end art shows, which is really amazing to go to. And then there is a whole spectrum of ones that are more and more accessible. Miami, the first week in December, is spectacular. There's probably 20 big art shows from Art Basel, which is the top show. If you think about it in like a mall, Art Basel is like the anchor store, like Macy's, which is just massive. And then, you know, in the mall, there's like all these other little shops, you know, some larger, some smaller. And it's this incredible thing. So I would encourage going to New York City, which is very close and easy to do. Miami, a little harder. So in the art fairs, there's these top ones, and then there's street fairs, which can be very, very successful and financially rewarding. Again, you want to be strategic in which fairs you show at and try to get into. If anyone is interested, I do have a list of art shows and art fairs that I look at. I do about 8 to 10 a year. I've shown not at Art Basel, but in Miami at Art Spectrum. I've been there 4 times, and it's always been very successful for me. Collectors and buyers are lazy. They can either go to 100 different galleries in New York City, or you go to one art fair which has 100 galleries in it, all in one place, one-stop shopping.
When you've gone to these art fairs, are you paying to participate in them, or are you going with a
Absolutely.
gallery and the gallery is paying?
So I haven't been, so me personally, and I think Dominic maybe has a different experience. So at Art Spectrum, it's about or Art Expo, which is in New York City. You may know that art show. I would actually recommend not doing Art Expo. So booth fees are on these mid-level art shows like Spectrum and Expo. 10 by 10 space is in the $5,000 to $10,000 range for a weekend. Again, that can be very expensive, but you can sell, $10,000 to $40,000 of artwork. Again, it all depends on how you go into it and your mind frame.
Yeah, no, I've
The
done.
Art Basel
I've
shows.
been in. I
Again,
was going to
Basel
say,
shows,
go ahead.
the Art Basel shows are more in the range of like starting at $100,000 to $250,000. Sometimes, if you're in one of these top galleries, they may take you and exhibit your pieces there. I'm sorry, go ahead. You had a question?
Well, no, I was just the Art Expo. I showed one piece twice.
Okay, and with which
Yeah.
organization?
I knew you'd ask me. I just
That's all right, no worries. So you showed with an organization, one piece.
yeah, and then but I paid for the space for
Exactly.
one piece,
Sure.
and I just I don't know.
And what was the experience? Good, bad, or you didn't?
I mean, the thing is, you have to decide if I mean, I didn't want to be there every day. And that's probably an issue. I suppose you have to be there, to tout your one piece,
Absolutely.
because they're showing a whole lot of work. So that's an issue, the whole time commitment to that.
So what I have, again, this is my personal experience and the way I go about it. I always try, instead of just showing one piece, I try to rent a booth, have quite a lot of pieces, and go into it knowing how to talk about your artwork, knowing how to sell, read some good books. And again, I can recommend some things to you if you're interested on how to sell and how to talk about the artwork, and go in it clear-headed with the idea that, you're going to be there for the full time. You're going to be on your feet for, 5 days. You're going to spend a lot of money and work just to get the artwork there and set up. And you just have to be prepared for that. It is a very rigorous, expensive, and hard thing to do, but very, very exciting to be in that place. So I did Art New York a number of years ago, and like 3 booths down is a Picasso painting. There, the top name people, again, depending on what show you're in, you're with the top of the art world, which is pretty crazy that you're walking into this venue and you're showing next to a Picasso.
Do you know anything about the Clio art fair?
I have to stay away from it. So again, you need to research the art fairs and pick the ones that will be successful. I can strongly recommend Spectrum in Miami, Art New York, which is not happening any longer. I'm not going to go into all this right now. I do have a file with many of the art fairs from high end to low end that I have found to be successful. I did Clio last May. So one thing to think about when you're picking a top art fair, so like Clio is during Art Freeze weekend. So if you're like if you're showing with in the same weekend as a number of the other art fairs, you have worldwide people coming into the top art fair. And then just like at the mall, they're going to trickle down to the other art fairs. And you can often get, really good sales and really good coverage from showing the same weekend as Art Basel, the same weekend as Art Freeze. Certain fairs you just want to stay away from. Personally, I would say Clio. I would say Art Expo to stay away from currently. It didn't always used to be that way. I've actually shown at Art Expo in New York City 4 times also. I've always done well and made a profit, but it's a tough thing to do. And I would say practice, cut your teeth on some of the lower end art fairs before you go to the higher end, just so you know how to, talk and sell and like that. Dominic, I think you had a piece or two that a gallery brought to one.
Yeah, I've had a few showings. Like I did Chicago Sofa and Art Expo. I did that one year as well. And then I did Scope and a few other smaller ones. But sometimes, like I think what happened with Jackie, the art gallery will charge you for a wall. Most of the time that I've done it, they haven't charged me, so they just give me a wall, and I get to bring my pieces in, and they've been, they've done relatively well. The problem I have with it is like, and I think you just mentioned this, is the cost. And the cost is, even if the gallery doesn't charge me, it's still really expensive because the gallery kind of wants you there, right? You have to sell your own art, which I love doing. I love watching people take photos of the art. I love talking about my art. But then you got to stay, 4 nights in New York. You got to transport the art down there. You got to hire people to help you put it up, right? Because my art was really, really heavy, so I can't do it on alone. So when you factor all that in, I've just spent $5,000. Even if I'm not paying, it gets really, really expensive quickly. And so then you've got to sell, $10,000-$15,000 worth of art just to make back, and it's fun. You can look about it as like, but it's a lot of work. You're standing all day. You're standing 8 hours a day on concrete most of the time. I don't have to tell you. It's like, but the other art fair, and maybe we move on after this, is Spring Break is one that you can apply as an artist. I think all you need is a curator. You don't need a gallery. So if you do want to do that, and then the other one that I haven't done, but as if you want to get started doing this stuff, and I can see, someone like Beta doing something like that, is the one in Marlboro. What's that called?
About Paradise City. Yes.
Paradise City. Yeah.
That's a little bit of a different entity than Spring Break, or I think affordable art. So again, you have to read the rules and regulations for all of these. You have to be very, talk to some other artists that have been there and be very clear-headed. So I have also done, purchased a space from a gallery to show like Art New York. I purchased, again, a 10-foot by 10-foot space. It's about $7,000, but I am there and I'm, selling. You have to go there and plan to sell and talk about your artwork for those, 3 or 4 days. Paradise City is a great show that's more on the sort of high-end craft market. They have great fine art. They also have more crafty type stuff. Again, very high-end. That particular show is in the $1,000 to $1,200 range for a 10 by 10 booth. And it's it's in the convention center in Marlborough, and a great way to show and talk about your art. So for somewhat of a low cost, you can kind of get into that realm, but it's not in the realm of Scope or Art Expo or some of these other shows. So I've done Paradise City quite often. So we're going to move on. If anyone has other questions or would like my list of art shows, just reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to send that along. I'm just going to scroll through here. Again, for the art shows, you want to be very specific, apply for only, and put in your stuff that only fits into your medium and style. And let's see here. This is going down to commissions. So any other thoughts or questions about art shows before we move on? So again, this section of what we're going through is, ways to sell your artwork and sort of make a living and get that money that helps you create more and bigger artwork. Another way is commissions. There's sort of two ways to get commissions. One thing is to do apply to a call, which can be very difficult and very intimidating, because there could be, hundreds or thousands of people applying to the same call, and only one person will get it. It's, even if you're a finalist, you may only get a couple $100s to develop, a really extensive maquette and model and proposal. And, you get a couple $100s, but the final design gets, $100,000 commission. So it's like, you get the steak knives or you get the $100,000. It's, it's a hard road to hoe. The other way to get commissions is, sort of, somewhat I call through the back door of knowing, or somebody asking you to create something. And you need to really work with them, work with the committee, and try to understand what they really want. So in the proposal process, again, you really want to know what you're applying for, be specific in what you do is what they're looking for. Ask the important questions. How much detail is required in the proposal? Who's on the acceptance committee? Again, if there's all conceptual artists on the acceptance committee and you're doing traditional realism, you're probably not a good fit. So, just do your homework. An hour of homework will save you weeks of, putting together a proposal and a maquette, etc. Joy says it's really good to apply to some of these proposals. They're being juried by art professionals. You'll get seen by art professionals. With the placements, often there is a requirement to be involved in the community, doing, sort of outreach, doing research in terms of what the community wants. There's other calls that is just a request for proposals, in other words, or a request for qualifications, RFQ, in which case you just put in, let's say, 10 images of your work and your resume, and then the committee will go through that and cherry pick and pick the ones that they want to talk to. In some ways, that's easier because you don't have to do the work to come up with a proposal and a maquette, etc., and then get rejected. I've gotten a lot of commissions. I've also gotten rejected from a lot of commissions. Many of my most popular sales sculptures are actually rejections from proposals, which is kind of crazy. Like, they didn't want it, but I can sell all heck out of it, because in some ways, when you're applying for a proposal, your main way of thinking is not like, what do I want to create, but what will the committee, what will the public respond to? And going about making art with that mindset can be very helpful because it, you know, it has more of a connection to the public. Joy says, you know, if you can try to get paid for the proposal. I've never actually found a place that's willing to pay me for a proposal, but you know, good luck with that. In terms of
Sometimes they don't, you know, once you get to the final stage and they have like 3 or 4 left,
yeah,
then they'll sometimes pay you $500 or $600 to, or $1,000. I've seen some of them for the
Because
3 finalists, right?
right. So that's a tough part. So I've been in that a few times. So again, that's a tough one because you're a finalist. You get, you know, $500 or $1,000, but then it's on you to try to win that $100,000 commission or $1 million commission, and you're putting in, let's say, a month of work, and maybe you have a 1 in 4 shot of winning if you're one of 4 finalists, but it's a lot of work. You know, it's essentially buying an expensive lottery ticket. When you're so if you get the commission, or when you get the commission, this is the point where contracts, or I actually prefer to call them agreements as opposed to contracts, stay away from the legalese, because that just brings in the lawyers. But you want it to really spell out exactly what you're doing, exactly the time frame and scheduling you're getting paid, when your outlays are being made, and be very clear and specific in all aspects of it, because this will essentially direct your work for, let's say, the next year of creating this, you know, piece of artwork that may take a year. And also think about a termination schedule. So not often, but sometimes things go south. People don't see eye to eye. You want to know if they want to terminate, or if you want to terminate, who gets what money, who gets the art, exactly what that looks like. And again, really try to have your money coming in relating to the money going out. In other words, you know, if it's going to the foundry, they provide approval. Again, I'm a clay sculptor, sculpt in clay, make a mold, cast in bronze mostly. You can make the changes in the clay. So in that last moment before it goes to the foundry, they have to give written approval, as well as the next, you know, 25% payment to say they approve it and it's ready to go on to the foundry. And that could be your deposit to the foundry. And again, you want to make sure you have about 4 times the amount of money that it costs for the casting, etc. So you want to get 2 to 4 times more than the cost. When you're bringing in a gallery or other entity into a commission process, it becomes much harder because they're getting a commission and sort of upping the price without necessarily providing any good input. That being said, sometimes working with the gallery can bring that price up much higher. So, you know, it's a mixed bag working with the gallery on the commission. I've done one with a gallery, which, and again, it worked out well, but it's a hard thing. It's just another, you know, person at the table. There are registries, like let's say New York City or Seattle has a registry of listed artists, and they you know, basically collect, let's say, 10 of your images, your resume, and then when they have a call or someplace for public art, they will pick people from that registry. That's an easy way to you know, be in the art market. I've actually never gotten called from a registry, but on occasion people have, you know, seen me through the NISA website, through the National Sculpture Society website, etc. So just having your images out on the internet in many different places, in many different ways, can sometimes be beneficial. In the this write-up, I have a listing. Again, these are ones that she talked about, a listing of many different organizations that accepts artwork. And I'm not going to go through that now, but you can see that when you go through, some of the biggest buyers that you wouldn't think about is the Housing and Urban Development, HUD, the New York City Transit Authority. You know, if you are walking through, you know, New York City train stations, also here in Boston, there's some great artwork up, airports. Many of these entities are, you know, buying and installing artwork. Again, percentage for the arts. These are great ways to get your art into the public, to get public art out. Also, again, we're probably all sculptors and have maybe a house full of artwork and house full of sculpture. If you can get, you know, if you can take one of these pieces that you just have laying around gathering dust out into the public someplace, again, it's sort of cheap storage. It gets it out of your house. It gets it seen. You may or may not get paid for it, but you know, there may be 100 or 1,000 people walking by it every day seeing it. It's better than gathering dust in your basement. You know, just a thing to think about. You know, try to manage your inventory and the pieces that you have well, get them out in the world as much as you can, and also try to get coverage on them from media, social media, etc. This is a way to breathe life into your old sculptures that you may not be able to do otherwise. And again, this is, if you're seeing my screen, there's a listing of, you know, 20 different places that accepts art. Also, now more and more, there are gardens and places that are giving stipends of $1,000 to $5,000 for a sculpture placement, which is actually pretty cool because you still own the artwork. They essentially rent it for a year. You may cover the cost of making the artwork, and at the end of the year, you get that piece of artwork back. Then you can sell it or send it to the next place, and you know, you could make some decent money with that. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have questions with that. I also have a file of parts, etc. You have any questions about this section of selling and marketing, etc.? Any thoughts or input or feedback? Or okay, got a silent crew. I hope you guys are all taking notes. That was kind of the key for, you know, when I was during this, their program was 3 sessions, is about, again, 18 hours. I was just on my iPhone just taking notes as we spoke, and it really became a way to learn and continue learning from what they said. I'm going to go back to the top. So actually, I'm going to scroll down to sort of section number 2 is kind of creating a presence. Okay, so we're all artists. The thing that we do is we make sculpture. We want to get our artwork out there. I know I want to, you know, I'm always thinking about making more and bigger and cooler stuff. Having a presence and getting paid for it and having it out in the world just fuels that, you know, whether it's a great newspaper article or a reel on social media or the sale of an artwork, that just fuels me and hopefully others to make more and cooler artwork. One thing to, again, we want to try to figure out how to do that in a strategic way, whether that's, you know, sculpting in clay, making a mold, casting multiples. It's maybe, you know, welding, maybe every piece is one of a kind, you know, whatever that strategy is that you're doing, however you're doing it with philosophical thoughts, what you want to do, the bottom line is connecting with the world. And sort of, to me, the basis of art is really speaking, getting your message out, whether it's social justice, environmental concerns, whatever it is, speaking your mind in the world. It's a way for us to have a larger presence, to be at the podium, and a way for us to, again, to say it, to live on after we're dead. Basically, our artwork will live on long after we will. Again, there's bronzes that have been out for 5,000 years. There's stone pieces that have been around for, I don't know how long Stonehenge has been around, 10,000 years, I don't know. But the makers of that are certainly living on. Wouldn't it be great to be part of that conversation? The art presence is supported by a three-legged stool, the museums and galleries, again, sales and scholarly or academic pursuits. Joy says, save the ephemera. This can be used in the future to document your legacy. Again, ways to build your presence. Of course, having your artwork in public is one way. Website and internet is really important. That really becomes your business card. Again, in a social media world where we all have our phones, we all have access to the internet basically 24/7. All the time, I am pulling out my phone and just, you can email people images from your website. I also have an image of my sculpture on screensaver. So in like 2 seconds, I can just pull out my phone and say, this is what I did last week, and it's showing my 8-foot sculpture overlooking downtown Manhattan. And they're like, wow, you did that? So just be a part of that. So on the website, it shows a timeline. Again, the bottom line is things all need to be professional, well-maintained, and up to date. The artist website, as opposed to galleries or other museums, etc., we as artists have full control of our website. You control what's in there, what's not in there. Don't turn it into an archive. Don't keep a lot of your old junk in there. Don't have pictures of your dog or your newborn niece, etc. You want to have a separate social account with your dog and cat, etc. Have a separate thing. Keep your artwork clean, crisp, and professional. I think Dominic was talking about he only keeps about 1/3 of his work on the website. Again, keep it clean, sharp, crisp, and let it do your work for you. Joy says, don't dismiss Facebook. She's saying, which I haven't found it to be, many art sales occur from Facebook. She says, don't dismiss Facebook. It's a slower engagement. You don't want to put your pricing on Facebook or on your website. Currently, many galleries do that. Putting your prices on the internet is a double-edged sword. If they're up there, you're tied into that pricing. Everyone knows what you're selling it at, and you can't easily sell it for more or less if it's posted at a specific price. So be very careful about what pricing and what stuff you put up on Facebook or on your internet. Again, your website and Facebook is your business card, in this media world.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you prefer put the selling connection through your website rather not doing it? Because someone suggests me if I selling my work through the website, and then I saw a lot of professional artists doesn't do that. So yeah.
Again, that's a double-edged sword. So I personally don't have prices on my website. I have a page where people can contact me and reach out to me to purchase. And then I, you always want to follow up very quickly. Again, in this world, we're competing with Amazon. You don't want to live that way, but people on internet sales expect, a prompt reply, certainly within 24 hours, often quicker. And if they're purchasing a piece, they expect it like, next day or 3 to 5 day shipping. With UPS, you can often do that. Obviously, with bigger pieces that you may not have on hand, you can't do that. And again, a lot of that is in the communication in terms of, saying, well, this sculpture has to be cast at the foundry, but you're getting a piece that's cast specifically for you. If you want to put, if you want to have a specific patina coloration or your initials on it for like a wedding anniversary or whatever, that becomes possible. So you want to kind of trade off these things. The other end of it, there are a lot of artists that have, basically use their website as a marketplace with like a shopping cart and prices. Again, I don't personally do that. It doesn't work with my strategy, but if you're doing prints or books or cards or calendars, these are all ways to make money. You do what works best for you and don't worry about, the snobbery of this is this thing or that thing or whatever you have to do. Do what works best for you. Again, there's top art, you think of Keith Haring was selling, t-shirts and prints, but also was like the biggest name artist in pop art. Kusama and a lot of these big names, they have a marketing arm. They may not be doing it. I forget his name. The painter of light actually, sold more stuff than all the biggest name artists combined. And that's all like prints and calendars and puzzles of, this stuff. And it just becomes a machine. I'm not one to look down on it. Let's make some money. Let's make some great art. And whatever balance we do that in is the way you do it. But also, that being said, you sleep in the bed that you make. So in other words, if you have a website with a shopping cart and postcards and prints, etc., you're probably not going to get called by the Met, except, not that I'm getting called by the Met either, but that's the level that you're selling to, and you're going to get what you put out in the world. And again, you can ask more questions about that. I am not super technological. My wife does my website, either, again, for selling and for the technological stuff. Either you want to learn to do it or you want to hire someone to do it. And again, those are decisions you have to make. If you feel comfortable with selling, if you feel comfortable with technology, you figure out what you can do, hire people to do the stuff that you can't or don't want to do or don't have the time to do, etc. Personally, I work with the foundry to do much of the mold making and casting. It just works with what I do. We all have to make that decision. I'm going to move on. Again, feel free to ask any questions.
What foundry do you work with? I'm just curious.
Well, I've worked, so I know you're in New York. I've worked with a number of New York foundries. I actually grew up in New York City in Long Island, went to the Art Students League. So I've worked with Meisner out in Long Island, which they are no longer a foundry. I've worked with Talix up in Beacon, New York. I've worked with Pietrasanta, again, in New York City and Italy. Currently, I am working with Green Foundry up in Elliott, Maine, and they're a small shop, but do amazing work. Again, working with a foundry is expensive and time consuming. And you might, even for a small piece, it might take them a year to get a final casting back. So
Yeah, no, I've worked with Modern Art.
Modern Art Foundry, sure. So again, there's lots of foundries out there. You want to find, again, like a Spectrum, There are some that are, you know, coffee and donuts, and you don't touch anything. It's just, you know, white glove, and they are often priced 2 or 3 times more expensive than more of a, I'm just going to say, a blue collar foundry where you're in the shop, you know, holding pieces while they're welding it, working on the waxes. To me, I prefer that. Both, it's a lower cost. You're usually working with a family-run operation, and you have much more say in the work and how it gets done. The one thing I'm going to say about foundries and any art fabrication is absolutely stay on top of every step of the way, because you can, you know, come back in and see your artwork and be like, who made that? I don't even know, what is this thing? You know, because it can get away from you very quickly. Stay on top of every step of the way. Make sure how, you know, look at the waxes, look at the molds, look at the castings, you know, stay on top of it, because you're going to get back what you put in. Again, getting back to the internet and your presence out there, Instagram is a big thing these days. Again, for artists, I think Instagram is a really great thing, as well as Pinterest. They say, you know, Instagram is for the people who want to like look at pictures and not read anything, which is, you know, it's great for art, personally. The Artsy is a website that, again, you can research this, Artsy, ArtNet, ArtSpace. There's a lot of places that will post your art. I think Artsy is better for galleries. Again, I've worked with a number of these different places, not so much for individual artists. And again, you have to look at the gamut of the fees that they're charging, what you get back, and percentage. So in general, if a place is taking a percentage, it's in their best interest to sell, and you're probably going to do better. If they're taking a flat fee, it's in their best interest just to collect artist money, and probably things are not going to sell because they have no interest in actually selling stuff. They have interest in pulling in artists and getting their money. So personally, you know, I don't necessarily need the ego of my piece in wherever. It's more of, you know, being able to sell it. They talk about LinkedIn, which I've actually never had success with LinkedIn. Joy says it's more for seeing the, like, how the back room of the art world operates. And she wants to connect on LinkedIn with other curators, other directors like that, not so much from artists. Joyce says that she will do like Google Photos. So in other words, if you click on an artist, you go to images, show images, you can see all of their work. That's how she likes to see artwork. Any questions there with presence and websites and Facebook, etc., or art sites? Go ahead, Dominic. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I shut off my mic. Sorry.
Right.
So no, I was just gonna say, when it comes to websites, I know it's kind of overwhelming because you want it to look right, and I didn't quite get a lot of that. But the one thing she did say is to go to 3 or 4 websites of artists that you are kind of aspiring to, right? And then look at like the cleanliness of like their website. It's like it's got like artwork, it's got, you know, press, your resume link, and it's all kind of simple. They don't have every single photo of every piece of art that they did for the last 20 years, right? They have so it's all very calculated. So that would be what she said, was really kind of go and find these artists and try to emulate what they've done, right? Rather than kind of think about it. And each artist is different, but find somebody who's specific. Like if it's Karen who does stone carving, go find a stone carving artist that's you know, big in New York and look at how their website is done. So that's the only thing she
Definitely. Again, if you go to the galleries and you go to the artist page, you can see the top artists. And if you find one that you like and is in your kind of wheelhouse, go to their website, see how they show, see the cleanliness. The other thing that I would say is have your work logically distributed, like, you know, public artwork, artwork for the home, artwork, you know, whatever, different ways you're going to divide that. And also have sort of a, you know, like the little images, the little images.
the
And then
thumbnail, yeah,
what's the word? I'm just slipping my
the
mind.
thumbnail,
Thumbnails, exactly.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So to me, like I've been actually looking a lot at a lot of the galleries, and you go to the artist page and they'll have all the artists with like a little thumbnail of their artwork. And this way you have a good sense of what everyone does. Where some galleries just has the names listed and you're like, I have no idea who these people are, what they do, and you're just like at a loss. Whereas, like, again, I'm relating it to our artwork with thumbnails of our sculptures. So if you have thumbnails and then you can click on it for a bigger, higher resolution image, people have a better sense of what they're looking at, what they're looking for. They can see 20 pieces at a go and then just choose the thing that they want, as opposed to scrolling through, you know, pages and pages of big images and are kind of at a loss. So, you know, think about it logically, that try to keep it clean, crisp, and don't have the old stuff on there
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible. And definitely look at other people's websites. And it's really good to, again, work with a professional website development company to at least do the infrastructure of the website. You can do a lot of the photos and work. And also when you like do the website optimization, you want to be very careful with that it's not going out to a lot of junk, because then you just get like 1,000 junk emails trying to sell you whatever. You know, be very clear and concise about how you want to promote your website. Again, you can ask more questions later on about that. I'm next going to scroll up to sort of the art environment. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Know the art environment and where you sort of fit into that spectrum. The kind of like the music industry, the art world is an L-shaped curve, meaning that on the left-hand side of the curve with the biggest sales, there's maybe 100 artists that are getting the bulk of the income, which is great. But that being said, as you go to the right of the graph with lower income, you have a very long tail where there's thousands and thousands of artists who are making, you know, some money selling a bunch of stuff, but, you know, not Jeff Koons and not Keith Haring. But, you know, in that long curve, there's a space for all of us, which is to me a very empowering thing, that we have a space in that long curve that, you know, we can all live in, we can all, you know, make some artwork and sell in, but know, you know, who's on that high end, who's those 100 artists that everyone's talking about these days, know those, you know, top galleries, and what they show and who they show. Joy says, which is a hard thing to do 5 hours of research a week of art awareness, of who's doing what's going on. A lot of that is trying to find out who you want to talk to, who you want to aspire to, and trying to find that right person or right organization that will spearhead your career. Ways that we can do that, again, is going to the openings, look at art publications. I personally really like and subscribe to the Art Newspaper, which is out of London, which is a great newspaper that really speaks about real issues in the artwork and not sort of the fluffy curatorial stuff that they're going on about different artists or different galleries. So I find many of the art publications are all, 70% of it is big glossy photos, advertisements. Another 20% is like these articles that to me aren't very helpful. The Art Newspaper has two great things that I always go to. One is they're both podcasts. Again, I read, but as an artist and I'm driving all the time, it's hard to sit down and read a book or read a paper. The podcast you can listen to as you're sculpting, as you're driving, whatever. Brush With is a great podcast that interviews a specific artist in a 1 hour long format each week. And if you just go down the list of interviewees, it's like the who's who of the art world. And you spend an hour in their studio and hear all the things that they're thinking, the music they listen to, what they have on the walls. It's really incredible. And it also helps you get that sort of art lingo of, how they're talking about their artwork. And another podcast with the Art Newspaper is called The Week in Art, which just is a recap of all the things that happened in the art. So for instance, Marlborough Gallery, which is a megalith of galleries in the world for the last 80 years, is currently closing down. So just to know that is a really important thing. This is news out just this week. And in this listing, there's 20, 30 papers to look at from Art New England, Art Scope, etc. Just look and read and get as much as you can. To other books, again, you mentioned Jerry Saltz, the art critic. He has I personally think, you may not agree, this book, How to Be an Artist. I actually listened to it, Books on Tape, which is available for free from the library, again, depending on your library system, etc., or you can buy it. It's fairly inexpensive. I think it's a great book. And this other book that I just purchased, Private Eye in Public Art, which is actually more about public art in the New York art scene. It actually just was published 2023. It's a book that they talked about, in a number of times. I had it noted a number of places. I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but it's actually a book that I would sit down and read. Again, know who's in the room, know who you're emailing and talking to. I don't know if you guys do this or not, but often, again, I'm in a conversation at an opening or wherever, and until you ask, you don't know if you're talking to an open heart surgeon, the curator at the Met, you don't know. So just ask, know who you're talking to, do your research, try to know these people. And when somebody emails you with a request for an artwork, spend 5 minutes before time, just do a Google search on their name. You may find they're the owner of a, Fortune 500, and this directs what you respond to them, your pricing. Somebody emails me for a sculpture, sometimes, again, my go-to is, sell them a less expensive sculpture because it's more likely they'll sell. But if you're talking to, the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, they don't want to know about $1,000 sculpture. They want to know about, a $20,000 or $30,000 sculpture for their foyer or whatever, for their third house in Venice Beach or whatever. So know who you're talking to. I can't stress that enough. It's just so easy to be wrapped up in our minds and our artwork and go on. And again, keying back to the 9 touches, you know, casually touch out to galleries, directors, etc., the people you want to talk to 9 times, and at some point make a request. Don't be afraid to make that request. You know, can I show in your gallery? You know, you have a mega mansion. Can I put a piece out on your front lawn? I have this piece that's, you know, sitting gathering dust. How about we put it in your hotel for a month? You know, whatever, the sky's the limit. Just, you know, be creative and have fun with it.
Yeah, can I add one thing? Sorry,
Go ahead.
you're doing an awesome job and a lot more notes than I put together. But the last thing she also mentioned, these, maybe it comes in later, these PDFs in terms of like
I'm
putting
gonna catch
together
that.
like a little pitch book that you would send off to galleries, collectors, whatever it is, and it's like 3 or 4 images, your bio, that kind of stuff. And that could be a touch point. Like maybe you meet them a couple of times and like, you know, I want to send you something, and then you send it to them, and it's something done, you know, professionally, where it's you know, 3 or 4 images, talk about your work, contact info, that kind of stuff.
Definitely, absolutely. She did talk about that. So she's Joy said have a PDF ready, 4-page document ready to send, which includes your artist statement, 2 to 3 image. Here's my latest work. Joy really likes sending that email with the PDF. The downside of it is many people feel reluctant to open an email from somebody that they don't know or may know only peripherally because of viruses, etc. Again, you can do that in different ways. Paul said he really likes people reaching out to them and finding out about what they're doing. Joy says she collects business cards from everyone she meets and she saves them all. One note with the business card or brochure, most important thing is keep it professional, have it professionally done, and have an image of your artwork. You can, again, with business cards these days, you can have an image on the front and the back. As much as we talk about our artwork, and you know, it's great hearing the pictures earlier, you know, about what you're doing. The back of my mind is I really want to see images of, you know, your work, what you're talking about. This way I can really connect that image to your face and connect it to what you're talking about. They say, again, sending out a newsletter with your latest and greatest, maybe once or twice a year. Again, it could be more if you're doing, you know, big stuff. It could be less. Again, it depends on what you works best for you. Again, we want to get this list of contacts of the people who are interested in artwork, and one way to do that. So in the past, at an art show, you'd have a register where people sign up with their name and email, etc. I've moved away from that about 10 years ago. When I was at Art Expo, they actually had also a professional development thing. And what they said was, when you have somebody in your booth or you're talking to somebody, from your website, you can email them directly an image that they're interested in. You want to have the email set up so it blind copies you automatically. So they get an email with your image, they have your contact information, but you also have their contact information. When you get home after the show or whatever, you can put that in your contact list, and that becomes the basis of your email list to send out for, you know, shows and whatever. I do shows around the country, so I have an email list of Chicago, Philadelphia, Miami, etc. And with that, you can have it geographically centered, whereas you know, people in Miami don't want to know if you're doing a show in Philadelphia and vice versa. You want to have, you know, your emails focused on things that they're interested in. And then once a year, I'll send out an email to everyone with the stuff that I do. But, you know, even if you're talking to somebody at a bus stop or wherever, you can do the same thing, you know, send them an email with one of your images, you get their contact. I've sold pieces, you know, on some of my different trips where like, oh, we really love this, let's connect up, and, you know, I'm shipping a piece to Paris or wherever. Again, there was, I think, was it Glenn and Glenn, some movie where they're saying, you know, always be selling, ABS. You know, that's really should be our mind frame. I mean, we're artists, we're doing cool stuff. We're like the rock stars, you know, we're where the party is at. You know, in Miami, you know, I'm at the show, you know, and, you know, it's a party atmosphere. I'm like, you know, asking other artists like, oh, where's the parties? And like, we are the party. We're what everyone came here to see. We are the party. We're the rock stars. You know, think of ourselves as that. This is what we are. I mean, I would love to play music. I'd love to be a rock star, but I'm an artist, so let's run with it. Other things, you know, just real quick, we have the newsletter. I use a brochure rather than a business card. You can just get more photos on there. Have that 4-page PDF doc ready to go. They talked about having a catalog, and with Amazon Books, you can actually create a pretty nice catalog or book that features your artwork. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but it's really, so again, a big part of what we're doing and being professional is building the validity and the credibility to say, I'm an artist, here's the artwork, this is what it's worth. You're not selling $100,000 piece or $1 million piece without the validity and the credibility behind it to back it up. A book is a really easy, inexpensive way to build that credibility. So she says about 32 pages. You want to have about 2 pages for your bio. You can also hire a writer, a critic, somebody well-known to write the intro. One thing that I picked up from this, so one of the presenters, Paul Lassiter, is a writer and critic.
Paul Laster.
Yeah. And so he writes for many publications, and he actually said in some of them, he's actually only getting paid $50 an article, which is crazy. So for even, let's say $100, you know, a couple $100, you could hire a top art critic. Again, I'm not sure that Paul would do it, but to write your intro, and you have, you know, a lot of credibility there. Again, you know, keep it clean, professional, and you can publish on Amazon Books. Also, if you get it copyrighted, get an ISBN number, which makes it listed officially in the Library of Congress, which makes it an actual book. Again, all this stuff builds credibility and makes it easier to sell that big piece of artwork, you know. And I'm kind of getting to the end here. Again, different things to build that credibility, building the supporting documentation, the resume. Again, the key in it is showing your professionalism. If you're just starting out, you maybe want to fill that page, which is much stuff as you can get to have a full page. If you're have a longer art career, absolutely do not have it more than 1 page. So maybe front and back of 1 page. Only show selective exhibitions and commissions. So you can title it Selective Resume. Again, don't put everything in it. And keep it clear, crisp, bullet pointed with times, you know, years when things were done, and only put the biggest things in that's going to capture the attention. Places also ask for a bio, which is different than resume. A bio is more of a informal written, like in paragraphs, statement of like what's in your resume. You want to have it even more selective than what's in your resume, and keep it, again, no more than one page. Keep it short, clear, crisp, and just hitting the big points. An artist statement, again, a lot of places ask for an artist statement. That's something different. In the artist statement, that should be your personal statement in your words. So the bio and the resume is in third person. In other words, you want to keep I, me, my, all that stuff out of the bio and keep it third person. Part of the problem with talking about it in the first person, as in using words like me, my, etc., is that it closes it off. It doesn't. You want these things to encourage conversation and engagement. You don't want to create a closed-end conversation. You want to create venue for them to talk to you, ask questions, and create this open dialogue. Whereas the me, my stuff closes that very quickly. The statement, on the other hand, is really about your work, about your philosophy, and it should, sort of describe the work, but also talk about things that aren't so clearly apparent. Talk about the philosophical and thought stuff that's underlying the structure of what you're doing, and not just a verbal description. The press release, especially when you're having a show or an event or unveiling a new sculpture, press is really, really good. Again, that creates validity. In my booth, I always, I have 2 or 3 articles just laminated and on the wall. People are just always like, I've been actually lucky enough to be in the New York Times a few times, and just having a New York Times article, or from whatever paper, Metro West Daily News. Most people don't know the papers, but having that article on the wall that somebody had you have the newspaper coverage to back you. And these days, newspapers are so short-staffed, mostly they will take what you give them in a press release and publish it verbatim, which is kind of crazy. Again, those are lower, that's not the New York Times, but many of these more local papers will publish your press release verbatim. Again, keep it compelling, keep it positive, don't get into too much of the philosophy, and answer the 5 W's of who, what, where, when, how, why. Again, those are the things that if somebody is reading an article about your art opening, they want to know where it is, what state, what day, what time, etc., how to get there. A lot of times I get these emails about openings saying it's in wherever, and I'm like, what state is that even? I don't even know what state that's in. It's like, you just want to keep that newspaper hat on, answer the important questions in the press release. And one thing that I found from doing a residency is where they required you to write a short paragraph about each of your works. That's really important. It opens up the doors to help you understand what you're doing. You often, when you start writing about a piece of work, you actually learn more about it, and it opens doors that you may not open. So again, we're creating the work physically and visually, but also think about how to talk about it verbally, how to write about it, how to describe it philosophically. Those are really, really important things. If you're in the Cape Cod Museum Art Show, one of the things that they request is a description of the artwork, of what it means. And these things are very important. They talked about using AI to tweak your writing to help, you could say, you know, how do we make this more sophisticated? And you could actually do an AI thing to do that. I personally haven't done that, but it's what they have talked about. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
Michael, I think we've only got a few minutes
Right.
before we're at the
Absolutely.
2-hour mark. But
Definitely.
we started a little later. But maybe if there's a few last minute kind of things that we can
No, I am
mention.
pretty much done. I've kind of gone through it. Feel
Oh,
let me
awesome.
know any questions, and we can also email you this list of notes and other things that we've talked about. So I'm going to open up to you guys what questions you have.
Well, Michael, first of all, I just want to commend you, on your generous spirit, your succinct delivery, and the sharing of this information, because I was really upset that I could not attend any of these. And you've been able to recalibrate it into a brilliant presentation. And I want to thank you so much. It was really a great 2 hours. And I would definitely like your information if you could email that on. And I might phone you because I'm going to be in Pietrasanta myself next week. I'll call you separately on that. So, but I have to go. I just want to say thank you. And I look forward to the email and
Sure. So again, this was a sort of the Cliff Notes version of it. There was, I think, about 15 hours of this. There was, again, a lot of repetitiveness, a lot of sort of arguing back and forth of who thinks this and who thinks that. And a lot of, things were just in a jumble. So I was able to pull together in these sort of 5 topics. One other thing that I didn't touch on is actually creating goals, which is at the bottom here, which I can't emphasize enough. Having, again, it's hard to say 1 year, 2 year, 5 years goals, but as an artist, so basically the goal is the place you want to get to. The way I see it is you have a mountain, you have a gallery, you have a museum in the distance. How do I get there? You have this goal and whatever it is, trying to get into the net, whatever that thing is. You start walking on that path, you're actually moving. You're not, we all have to move, we all have to just do it. And you may fall short, but if you fall short, you may be at the Attleboro Art Museum or the Cape Cod Museum of Art, wherever. It's going to get you someplace once you start moving towards that goal. And then as time goes on, you refine the goal. You say, oh, this worked, this didn't work, this is where I really want to go. Don't be so tied into your goal or your direction that you're closed to other opportunities. Be open, be willing to change, be willing to rethink. The art world is continuously changing. Art trends are just trends. They change from year to year. And we're a part of the contemporary art world, which is in conversation with the contemporary world. So, we want to think of it in those terms.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Anybody else? No, I thank you. Thank you, Michael, for generously, putting this together. And I think we all enjoyed it. And I think we're going to try and place this on the website as well. So people can who missed it today. We did have originally, I think 12 people signed up, but anyways, I think it's great. And hope everybody enjoys the rest of the weekend and has a great time. And thank you again, Michael, and everybody who was here, and some great questions and feedback.
Thank you.
It was terrific.
Doing this, and thank you, and good luck to you in your art careers. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. My email is listed there, and you can always find me at michaelalfano.com. So good luck to all of you, and have fun doing it. That's the most important thing. And just be excited and do great artwork. That's what we're here for, not the other business.
I'm feeling inspired. Thank you.
Good, guys.
Yes,
Enjoy. Have a
Thanks,
great
Michael.
weekend.
Thanks.
thank you very, very much. It was terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks. I'm going to end it now.
Okay.